This is an ARB Annex, cost $350, and one of the first things I noticed about it was this very light floor. Very cheap, ordinary tent material for a floor. A lot of tents have these, and they really, in our experience, don't last a great deal of time. The Aldi one has a much thicker floor, which I'll show you when I do have a look around the Aldi Annex. And the other thing I don't like are these zips. You've got 3 zips, and if you're outside trying to get in, often you've got things in one hand and you want to get this open with one hand, and when you pull that up, what it's inclined to do, it's done it okay this time, but what it's inclined to do is not move up, and these ones pull apart. I prefer a zip that is just one zip that goes around, and plus that's not really 100% secure. You could still possibly forget to have that, leave a little gap in there and get bugs and that coming in. So I much prefer the single zips that go around and much easier to open with one hand. Now there are some positives to this compared to the Aldi. One of the first ones is this little hanging section. Really useful just to have somewhere to stick odds and ends, even if it's only for overnight, for glasses and wallets and keys and that sort of thing. The other thing that the Aldi really lacks is hooks, and you can see here hooks all around the place, heaps and heaps of hooks around the edge. So you can put cables up there, you can put lighting up there. As you can see in the corner there, we've got a little rubbish bag hanging up there. So that's a big positive, is having those little additions. And looking at the roof here, the ARB has this clear section, and what that's for is because some of the ARB awnings actually have a strip light built into them. So useful to have that there, because if you've got a light, then it's going to shine straight down into the tent. On the other hand, a negative against the Aldi is this inner door. This would normally be up against a car, and the problem we've got with this one is it doesn't have a fly screen. The Aldi one has both the solid wall and a fly screen, so if I want to use this light on the side of the trailer inside here, that has to come down, which leaves a little bit open, so you could get insects coming in there to get to the light. Very likely that they will come through there, so that's a bit of a nuisance actually. So what I've done temporarily, at least until I can think of something better, is have some magnetic lights in here, so they just stick to the side of the trailer and we can use those. But it would be nice to use the trailer light, because that's a good bright light for use in here if we're cooking or something like that. So there's quite a few differences between the awnings. Comparing the material, I have to say the ARB does feel a little thicker, a little better quality than the Aldi, but that's not that surprising because the Aldi awning is about $199, so it's $150 cheaper. And considering the difference in price, I guess the Aldi stacks up reasonably well. This one, as you can see, can be turned into a screen room. We've got solid walls and screen walls, so quite a big difference there. The Aldi, you can't do that. It's more like a traditional tent. We've got another door here, I believe. This one can be fully opened up. I'm just looking for the zips for that. I'm sure they're there somewhere, but there's a zip around here. So you've got a huge doorway there if you want to open it. And the roll down wall here, it can be unrolled and you can put a couple of tent poles there, so you can have a shaded area outside if you want to. So it's a pretty versatile awning. The one thing I really don't like about it is the floor, and I'll give you a look at the Aldi floor when we have a look at that one in a couple of minutes. So yeah, a couple of negatives. I don't like the zips on the doors, and I don't like the floor. But pretty well everything else about the ARB I think is pretty good. The material feels more waterproof. There feels like there's more rubberized material on the back of this. How well this clear section will stack up in the long term I don't know, but there shouldn't be too much need for weatherproofing there because you've already got the awning roof on top. Now I guess what I could do here, I haven't tried it yet, is get one of our strip lights out of the car and see if I can run that along there. That would actually be quite useful if I can set that up. It's something I might have a look at doing today. Another little feature that the ARB has that the Aldi doesn't, it's a little inlet there for a cable. So in fact we have two spots where you can bring a cable in. So quite useful, I guess. Another point of difference with the Aldi one is the ARB has these metal rings, whereas the Aldi only has the cloth straps. So again, just a little bit more attention to detail, slightly higher quality for the ARB in regards to that. Now the really cheap awnings, the really cheap annexes have Velcro that go around the poles. Both the Aldi and the ARB have these plastic clips. Hopefully they'll last well in the sun. That remains to be seen over a period of time. But both down the sides and at the top they have the same sort of clip, and that is a much better option than Velcro. Now when it comes to securing the Annex, there's really no option at all with the ARB. There are no holes in the zip tags to put padlocks. The Aldi has a round circle at the end of this, and with that you can put a padlock through it and lock two of these clips together. Of course, being a tent, it's not incredibly secure, but just gives you that added layer of protection, I guess. Now unfortunately it's looking a bit saggy, and the reason for that is we're sitting on the upslope of a bit of a hill here. The Aldi is going to look significantly nicer than the ARB because it's on a flatter piece of ground, but no real difference there between the way they will sit on flat ground. You can see there's a pretty big angle there on the ARB Annex. Now this is the Aldi version, and as you can see it's much more a traditional tent style. It's very basic, but then you are paying $150 less than the ARB, so considering the fact that it's a lot cheaper, I guess I can understand why it doesn't have quite so many features. But the first thing to note is that floor. This is not a cheap floor on the Aldi one. This is a good solid floor. It's not that crinkly sort of material. It's thick PVC. You can probably hear the difference. You don't get that crinkly sound that you get with those cheap floors. So I was actually quite surprised at how good the quality of this floor is. And the other thing about it is it zips on. Now I leave it there permanently. There's no reason to take it off. But I can't quite see why you would want to have a zip-off floor. But it does have that feature, whereas the ARB is fixed. And as you can see here, the same clips that are used on the ARB are used on the Aldi, both on the side poles and on the top here. So exactly the same setup. It doesn't have cheap Velcro, which I guess you would expect from the really cheap end of town. Just whacking a piece of Velcro around there is pretty common for Kings and things like that, I think. I don't think they're using these sort of clips from what I've seen on other videos. Now there is a little bit of weatherproofing with the Aldi one. You can see there's some Velcro pieces there. Now that's one thing we don't have on our main tent, which is really it boggles my mind. It's very handy just to be able to fix that lower edge of the windows down if there's a lot of wind and rain. The one thing we found with our big tent is the rain gets in there if you don't have a way of keeping that edge down. Now these are the floor tie downs for the Aldi, and as you can see, no metal ring on there, just the strap. I don't know if there's a real performance difference there, whether it'll last longer, but again, that's one of the things that remains to be seen. Now you can clearly see the difference here in the zips that are used. This one can be easily padlocked together to make it just a little bit more secure if you want to leave your campsite and not have people get inside without cutting through the material. Of course, there's no way you're going to stop somebody who's determined to get into a tent, but it's just nice to have that little added level of security for your belongings inside. And as you can see, I am easily undoing that with one hand while I do the filming with the other. That's very difficult to do with the ARB. Looking at the mesh here, this is the Aldi one. The weave is a bit more open, but it feels stronger than the ARB. The ARB feels very light, but it's a very closed weave on that one. They're both what I guess you would call micro mesh. Sandflies on that won't be able to get through it. But just this one feels stronger to me, just the touch of it. Looking at the canvas itself, this feels quite nice. There's nothing I would really say is wrong with it, but I think the ARB is a little bit higher grade. Just the feel of that is slightly lighter than the ARB version. And as you can see with the Aldi one, unfortunately, there's not a hook to be seen. Well, that's quite irritating, not having anywhere to hang a light. It would be really nice if they just put one or two hooks in here. They don't have to put them around every few inches like the ARB, but yeah, that would have been nice. And there's nowhere you can put a cable through, and there are no pockets. So the ARB wins in that respect. It's definitely great to have some hooks. It's good to have pockets, and it could be useful to have somewhere to bring a cable in. As you can see here, the door that would normally be up against a car, you have both the solid wall, which is rolled up at the top there, and you have this mesh. That's one thing the ARB doesn't have, and it's a win for the Aldi in that regard, because we can roll that up and use the light on the side of the trailer. So and it also provides a bit more ventilation, I guess. So you can't beat the ventilation in the ARB, can you? Yes, you can roll all the walls up. But yeah, much more a traditional little tent, basic. But for the money, I would say the Aldi stacks up well against the ARB. The ARB at $359 is a little expensive. The Aldi at $200 is quite a budget price, and when they have these things on a real knockdown, I saw one up at the Kwinana store for $99. Now if you got your hands on one of these for $99, you would be getting an absolute bargain. It's a good little Annex at $200, but for $99 it would be the bargain of the year. They're both the same size. Both of them are 2 meters by 2.5, and a reasonable amount of room. It's really great now to have a kitchen on one side and then the seating area on this side, so you can get in away from the flies and the mozzies and other assorted insects. And we are down at Conto, near Margaret River at the moment, and the march flies and the mozzies down here are quite prolific, and seem to be very, very focused on obtaining a sample of our blood. So it's nice to have this little area. You can come in here in the morning to have your brekkie, and at night have your dinner here, and then later sit and play cards or whatever, read a book. It's just a bit unfortunate that the far side there is on a slope, and that the ARB looks a bit sort of dorky, but it still does the job. And And then it's up to you guys to make up your minds which one you think is the better value for money. The ARB certainly is versatile and has some useful features. One or two things I don't like, as I mentioned, this crinkly style floor. You can really hear that crinkling. You know what kind of floor material that is because dozens of tents have that, whereas the Aldi is a nice thick PVC, and it's even more comfortable to walk on. There's a few little stones under here and you can really feel them through this stuff, whereas with the Aldi one it sort of softens them up a little bit. This is much thicker material.